everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here, taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Saturday, September the 7th. It's race number 9 at Kentucky Downs. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1 Franklin-Simpson Stakes. We're going 6.5 furlongs on the turf. $2 million is the purse, 12 in the body of the race, 13 through 16 also eligibles. Not surprisingly, Mike, this race for 3-year-olds, wide open.
Tough race here. A Grade 1 for these horses, pretty hard to come by, Dan. So I'm not surprised everybody's taking a shot at it. I don't know. I kind of knew the horses who I didn't want to use, but there were still several left over by the time I was done with that. This race is not easy.
Let's throw up our Timeform US pace projector. We have some fast horses in this race. Joe Shiesty, he showed big speed 2 starts back at Churchill Downs, Mike, and they really made a concerted effort to rate him off the layoff last time at Ellis Park. His best game is when he goes to the front. 6.5 is a question mark, but I expect him to show some speed. And Bear River, who's also cross-entered at Colonial Downs, if he runs here, he's quick.
Joe Shiesty's pretty fast, Dan. They picked a really tough spot for him in his most recent start to take on some really good older sprinters. He gets to go back in with the 3-year-olds here. The more I looked at the race, the more I expected him to be on the lead, but he might have to go pretty fast.
Please Advise is going to be cutting back to a sprint for the first time since winning the Atlantic Beach last year. Note the LP Chiclet over Please Advise, LP flag over Joe Please Advise's Chiclet. Here's the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We'll start things off with the number 1, Hedwig, going out for Owen Hardy, a winner last time out at Ellis Park. Mike, maybe this horse is just getting better. It was his first start off a little bit of a layoff. He's still lightly raced, and he showed enough tactical speed and a decent finish that if you think he can just improve off a little bit off that buyer of 86, he's got a shot.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was a fan of this horse last year as a 2-year-old. He did run well at Kentucky Downs in his one start here. And listen, basically 3-year-old debut last time. It did feel like he took a step forward. He got a good trip in that race, but he made that trip in that race because he had the speed to get into position. He waited until he had room to go. And then when he went, I thought he was very game to finish. Of course, you have to recognize that that was first-time Lasix, and the Lasix has to come right off. I don't know if that made a big difference or not, Dan, but I'm a fan of this horse, and he's one of the ones, I don't love him in here, but if he's a big price, I want to try to use him.
Coming in from Europe is the number 2, Evade, now with trainer Michael Maker, and he's a first-time gelding for this race, and maybe that'll help him because he pulled very hard in the early stages of his races over there, and he just doesn't have the speed to go with these horses early, so maybe he'll relax more now that he was gelded. He won that stake 3 starts back at Epsom going 7/8, showed speed on the outside, dug in gamely to win. A little bit disappointing in his last 2.
I mean, I guess he's a little bit of a wild card, if nothing else, in this race because he's a new face. He's shipping over. He's a new gelding for a really good trainer. I respect that he got 7 furlongs off the layoff. He was, sort of life and death there to win that race, though, Dan. If I'm being honest, I wanted him to run better in either one of his last 2 starts. I didn't really like his performance either time.
Evade was in against some pretty good competition last time out. The winner of that race came back to run second in a listed stake, then won a Group 3 in Germany. A couple of other horses returned to place in Group 2s overseas. The 3 is General Ledger. This horse cutting back in distance, showed speed last time out, Mike, stretching out to a mile, tired. He's going to appreciate cutting back in distance. I think they'll revert to the rating tactics that have worked well for him in the past. The question is he this good? He's Jockey Ortiz's second call.
It's a big question of whether, where he fits with horses like this. I don't think, they've tried all 3 surfaces with him. It seems like he sort of handles all 3 of them. I don't know what his best game is. I don't know if it's going long. I don't know if it's sprinting. I don't know which surface it comes on. I know he's going to be a good price in here, Dan. So I'm not going to sit here and knock this horse, but I just couldn't quite get there.
Yellow Card is the number 4, and I thought this horse looked really good winning at Churchill Downs 2 starts back. Despite being a bit green, he didn't break very well. It looked like he was trying to get out a bit on the turn, and then the trip worked out. He found the split and upper stretch, but he rallied strongly, and I liked him last time out in the Mahoney, a race where, again, he didn't show much early speed, but maybe didn't get the cleanest run.
He didn't. I mean, I really liked his turf debut 2 starts back. He did a lot of running in there when he got the room, and he just carried on past the wire, too. I know that was a 5 furlong race. It makes me feel like, going a little bit longer isn't really going to be an issue for this horse. I just feel like out of the Mahoney, and there are a few of them out of the Mahoney back in here, he's the only one that I want out of that race. He broke awkwardly. He was in and among horses, and could not get this horse to settle down. He was pulling and pulling. He still tried to run on it. And I don't know, man, I'm giving him a pass for that one. Loved his race 2 starts back. He's super dangerous in here at a price.
If Bear River, the number 5, runs here, he's going to show speed, as we saw from the Timeform US pace projector, and as we saw from his most recent start at Colonial Downs, when he was involved in a pretty hot duel with a long shot that ended up tiring and finishing 8th. Bear River also paid the price. He ran 6th. The third finisher came back, won a restricted handicap there with a 90 buyer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess their game plan here will probably try to be part of this pace. And I don't know how that's really going to work out for him. He did, get wins 2 and 3 starts back on different surfaces there while using his speed. But the turf rate, only one of the 3 race win streak, Dan, only one was on turf. And that wasn't a particularly fast pace. This pace is going to be faster.
Apollo 10, the number 6, ran hard from start to finish when taking the My Frenchman 2 starts back at Monmouth. He then ran in the Mahoney, and while he finished ahead of 3 of these horses, he had one of the better trips in the race. Let's watch Apollo 10, yellow cap. He sat the pocket, eases off the inside, is going to run 3rd, but you're going to have horses like Yellow Card in here, finishing 6th. Howard Wallowitz in here, who finished 4th. They weren't as lucky.
They weren't as lucky. This horse got a perfect trip in this race. He takes a run at the winner on the lead right now. He is denied, and he's out finished for 2nd by a big long shot here at the end. There's nothing wrong with this performance, Dan. He runs fine in here. He just happens not to be good enough. Listen, I don't really know what to say about him. He's 6-1 on the morning line. I think it's a terrible price on him. Maybe he'll really like Kentucky Downs. I don't know. I don't like this horse. I don't like any one of his races, and I do not want to bet him in here, especially if he takes money.
Joe Shiesty, the number 7, was a big winner on Derby Week in the William Walker Stakes. He showed high speed from the start, and he outfooted some quick horses from the gate to make the lead that day. And he just kept on going in a race where it just didn't seem like there was any closing going on. He returned off the layoff last time out, likely prepping for this against some decent older horses. And I think he could have gone on with it. They decided to rate him back into the pocket, and I'm not sure that's his best game.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, he didn't really run that well in there with the rating tactics. But again, they picked a really tough spot for him to prep for this against those older horses. A bunch of the horses that he was in there with are going to be running against Cogburn on this very same card. That's a really tough race. I just feel like he had no chance to beat them. And even though he got loose on the lead at a big price when he won his turf debut 2 starts back, I thought he ran really well in there. I mean, he never gave that field a chance through the stretch, and he got a big figure for it.
We'll see if he can go 6.5 furlongs here, but Mike's right about the class level of horse he was in against last time out. One of those older foes, Arrest Me Red, came back, won an allowance right here at Kentucky Downs with a 93 buyer speed figure. Please Advise is up next. I kind of like turnbacks to the 6.5 furlong distance, which might play a little bit more like 7 and 7.5 due to the European type configuration. Please Advise ran 4th in the Hall of Fame last time out. I'm not sure I really loved that race, but he has done well sprinting before. It has one going route to sprint.
I like that about him. I like that it feels like there's going to be pace in here for this horse who just kind of feels like he wants to sit back and make one run, and that could really work here. Ultimately, I think he's run fine in some of the longer races this year, Dan, but I just think he's probably better sprinting, and he's the horse that I can't say I've ever been a huge fan of his, but I want to use him in here.
Third start of the form cycle for the 9, Vote No, who is in against some tough Illinois breds last time out. The winner of that race, one of the better Illinois bred turf horses right now. He came back to win a state bred stake at Hawthorne with an 85 buyer. I think he's going to appreciate getting on firmer ground, cutting back in distance, and a fast pace works to his advantage, but he's going to need a buyer boost.
He is. I wonder if it's in him. He's one of the horses I struggled the most with. I really liked him as a 2-year-old, and especially, of course, he won that juvenile sprint here, and he was good winning that race in just his 2nd career start. So he handles Kentucky Downs. Dan, he got his 3-year-old debut, a really strong performance, and his form, it's kind of in and out since. I don't really know what to make of him. I'll say this: I can't say that I love the way that they've ridden him in any of his last 3 races. The last 2 in particular, where they just rated him from the start, took him back to last, and expected him to pass a bunch of horses, and it didn't work out. I don't think he's a one-run closer. I don't know, man. I'm a fan of this horse. I want to get him in there. He's 20-1 on the morning line. The bigger the price he is, the more interested I become. I don't think he's overmatched by these horses.
Howard Wallowitz, the number 10, looks like a prime contender, making only his 4th start with a lot of upside potential. 2 starts back, they ran him on synthetic for the first time. He showed much improved early speed than in his dull dirt debut, and he racked up a big buyer speed figure. And you saw in the replay of the Mahoney that we showed with Apollo 10 finishing 3rd, Howard Wallowitz was just buried down inside with nowhere to go.
Yeah, I mean, he might have ultimately been very unlucky in that race because he was running at the end and he just had nowhere to go up the inside. It feels like there's a chance that he could have won that race, Dan, if he had room up the inside. I know it was a different surface 2 starts back, and I know he was loose on the lead in there. He was super impressive winning. I think this horse is good.
Bill Mott had the 11 Mansa Musa ready to roll in that quick call 2 starts back. He set a really good trip. He got to the outside. He made the lead. He did a lot of chasing, and it was just his luck that he ran into a freak from the Godolphin barn who rallied from the center of the track to beat him. I wonder if he felt the effects of that race coming back in the Mahoney, Mike. He just didn't fire his shot that he did in the quick call. I have a feeling he's going to run a lot better here.
Yeah, I feel the same way about him. I mean, he was a tough call in that regard, Dan, if only because he was so disappointing last time. I mean, his first 4 starts over in this country, I thought he ran really well in every one of those, including the race, by the way, where Joe Shiesty beat him on the lead. This horse had real trouble in the stretch of that race and was going to be closer at the end. He was just disappointing last time. Very flat. The trip was there for him. He was clear in the stretch. He just didn't really fire at all. I know he's better than that, and I do think he can bounce back. I don't think I'd go too short as far as price goes, however.
The final horse in the body of the field is the 12 Smoky Smoky. And I wonder if, like Joe Shiesty, this horse just needs to be closer to the pace as he was 2 starts back during the Belmont at the Big A meet when he grinded out a win in the Paradise Creek. No real excuses, I thought, last time out in the quick call behind Mansa Musa. He was bumped at the start and farther back than usual, but he saved all the ground and just didn't punch in the stretch. I think we're hoping, if you like this horse, that he's going to appreciate 6.5 and a clear run on the outside and maybe this turf course.
Right. And yeah, he has run okay over this turf course in the past. So that's one thing he has going for him. I didn't love his last race. I did like his Paradise Creek. I thought he ran really well in there, although I don't think that was a very good field. And then he came back last time and he had, I guess, enough of an excuse with the bump at the start, but he did have a look at that thing in the stretch. And to me, this wasn't good enough. I thought he was a tough call in here, Dan, but I do expect him to be a good price.
Not really a fan of any of the also eligibles, to be honest. If I had to take one, maybe it would be Barksdale, the 13, a horse that has some speed but is cutting back in distance.
Yeah, it could be. I don't want any of them. There's 4 on the A list. I don't care if any of them get in. I'm not using them.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Franklin-Simpson. It's race 9 at Kentucky Downs, kickoff leg of a 50-cent pick 4. You're going with Yellow Card, Mike, the 4. Tough trip last time out, still has some upside, should get pace to rally into.
I think he deserves another chance off the last one, which was a bit of a disaster. Really liked his turf debut, Dan. I think he's going to be a good price. I just want him on top. If I could do the picks over again, I'd get Mansa Musa out of there, and I'd get Vote No in there.
For me, the 6 and the 7, 2 horses in my top 4, horses that I would prefer to use underneath in single race exotics. I'd like to focus on the 12 Smoky Smoky to improve because, as Mike mentioned, this horse has run well at the Downs in the past. Howard Wallowitz, we all saw the trip last time out. Yellow Card would have been my 5th pick. He's a horse I want to use in the pick 4 as well. 4, 8, 10, 11 for Mike, 12, 6, 10, 7 for me. Race number 9 at Kentucky Downs is your Saturday DRF race of the day. Best of luck.